welcome to another video of Nu-Trix, the Synth Guy. And today, well, I'm really happy because we have Henny the Business and Kennard Garret. And we'll talk about many things about the iOS music and just music production today. So first, how are you guys doing?
Doing all right, doing all right.
Hey man, we're great. We're great.
So one of the first topic I want to talk right away, and then we can just talk about everything else we like, is that there is a new release of an app, and you guys are related to that. So that's what I want to talk about, and that's why I'm wearing my official AudioKit T-shirt. Tell me how this idea of the latest plugin, first of all, the name, and why this exists, basically. How did you get into doing this with the AudioKit team?
All right. Well, I'll take the first stab at that. I'll let KG come in on the second half of it. But so I was doing a video. I forget what it was about. And Matthew from AudioKit reached out. And he said, hey, Henny, I recently just moved to Atlanta. And that's, where we're both from. And he was like, I have this spare iPad that I love, I'm not doing anything with. So if, you have any, followers or subscribers that you might want to use this as a giveaway, it would be awesome. And I was like, that would be great. And we could do like a sponsored video. And that was kind of the start of our relationship with AudioKit. And the funny thing about that is he sent it over. He mailed me the iPad. We did some type of giveaway. And from there, it's just that being genuine online can just, really turn into some really great results. So we did that. And then we invited him to the Ray Charles Performing Arts Center over there at Morehouse College, where we are professors. And, we showed him over the studio, told him what we had going, and show him some of the work that we had been working on. And he was like, how would you guys like to, collaborate with AudioKit and build an app? And KG, you want to kind of start taking it from there a little bit, and I'll come back in.
Yeah, so I mean, it's crazy. We were in the semester, we're working on records, we got other stuff going on. And it's interesting because, we're both Morehouse College graduates, and, neither of us have degrees in music, although we both spent, 20 years apiece doing music. I got degrees in physics and mechanical engineering, and Henny actually got a degree in business. So it was like, man, this would actually be kind of cool to try to build something with AudioKit. And, we love their products. We were using a lot of their stuff in our production anyway, since we work with iPads as a primary tool when we're creating and writing. So it was natural, both of us being keyboard players, to try to come up with something, in that area. So some keyboard sound, something like that. And lo and behold, I have a vintage electric piano in the Ray Charles Performing Arts Center that we were using quite a bit. And so we were teaching that semester. We told our students, like, hey, we got this incredible opportunity to sample this instrument, which, of course, none of them had never even played before. But we're like, how about if you could have this in your pocket? And that's kind of how it started. So, Hen,
yeah, and from there, it was just kind of like, being so involved in learning iOS, learning the products, learning the apps, learning the workflow. It was a situation then to where it was, we were excited to show the students because, there's a big following with iOS that is brewing, right? That's growing, and people are starting to get more and more interested. But I think, from this standpoint, we wanted to not only bring this app to that community, but also show a lot of people that there's a lot of potential in iOS platform music production. So we got with Matt. He came to the class a few times. He started showing the students about their open source kit, and how to develop these apps, and what some of the other apps that were developed through AudioKit's platform. We started sampling over and over with the students, and building up this, the sound library of all these velocity layers, and, the key sounds and all the things that we would want in a simple but very lush sounding instrument that we knew that we wanted to be able to use as like an AUV3 plugin. And it took a while, and it wasn't necessarily going back and forth with AudioKit, but really just the pandemic and everything else. Because we initially wanted to release this South by Southwest of 2020 when we were going to speak there. But of course, and then from there, we just kind of just slowballed it for a while and started beta testing. And I think that was a great moment because, like Kennard would tell you, we got with a lot of people and allowed them not only from a touring perspective, a musician perspective, but also an iOS producer perspective on what worked and what didn't. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was the cool thing about it with the testers. We were introducing a lot of them to iOS. That's one thing, Henny's been doing this for years and really got me on iOS and using that in the studio and using it as a tool to write, create, record, to get our ideas out. So, we saw this as like, this is where music is moving. And, not being afraid of technology, we're like, hey, let's introduce people that we know, touring musicians, and get them involved in this, but get them excited about something that really is an instrument that they use. But touring with a 150-pound, 200-pound electric piano is not always ideal,
and it will not always survive the tour. Also,
exactly.
That's the main problem.
Yeah. So I know how fragile my instrument is. So it was really good to introduce them to this world and to get real feedback, because for most of them, they've never played an emulation of one of these instruments on an iPad device or iPhone. So it was an incredible unplanned delay in the release because we got to spend so much time with them playing the instrument.
Okay. Well, I'm actually, I mean, I had fun this week playing with it, and it just sounds really lush and nice. It really, I mean, I wasn't sure the technology behind it because I know what they're doing, but I wasn't sure it was sampling or not. So it is sampling.
Yeah,
it's yours.
What we did is we sampled, I think it was about every 3 or 4 keys, every 3 to 4 keys on the electric piano, and we did it in 3 velocities because we knew that, like with iOS apps, specifically with iPhone apps, you don't want them to be too big that, people can't download them over LTE, and I know that we're starting to get 5G and other things, so you can do downloads with bigger files, but you got to think of people's space. You got to think of how it's going to react in different, DAWs with iOS and other things like that. So we wanted to make sure that, the file size was small enough, but we still got what it was. And so we did multiple, three velocity layers, all the way up to scale. And then from there, we sampled the key noise on all those velocities, the pedal noise, and even the board of the electric piano. So trying to make sure that it just sounded and felt like what we knew when we sat there.
Well, it sounds really nice. It's a good job. Yeah. It really, I mean, I know it's a long job to record all these sounds and organize this so it actually reacts the right way and switch at the right velocity and all that. But it sounds really nice. So good job, guys.
Appreciate it. That was the goal, to make it sound good.
Well, to make it sound like we could use it and we would want to use it. So
that's what I find interesting is that this is not just like, let's do an app for somebody else. It's like, make it so I can use it,
Yes.
And that's what it feels like. It feels like something you'd say, well, yeah, I can use that. It sounds really cool. It's just.
Yeah.
And that's what we sat down with Matt, and we had our first discussion. I was like, we'd both had extensive, collaborations and even, doing certain deals with other, instrument companies on Mac and PC. And you get to a point where every year, companies will give you 300, 400 gigs of files, right? And you last year got 300, 400 gigs of files. And you're sitting there and you're like, shit, all right, what electric piano, what piano do I want to use? What drum, what bass? And we started to get so frustrated because there's too many choices. And I think it's crazy, right? We talked to a class over at UGA, the Bulldogs. It's one of their music production classes, and a girl asked us a question about starting her brand, and she was like, "There's too much access out there. How do I condense it, and how do I really get the right tools, or get the right news and get the right facts?" And I think that's what we're the type of life we're living in right now. There's just so much out there that it's hard to filter what's going to be right. And so when we did this app, we just wanted to make it simple and straightforward, and not a lot of hooplas, not a lot of presets. Just give you something that'll work.
I don't know, because this is a discussion I had with many people about the iPad, within the industry or outside of the industry. But I feel that the iPad is kind of the perfect platform for this approach, meaning one app, one job, one instrument.
Right.
It just works. And I would like to hear you about, because you talked about teaching in class, explaining to the new people coming into the industry. And I think that this is something really interesting. My background, I'm also working in schools. I worked for 25 years for a music production school in Montreal. Now I changed to a different industry. I'm with stand-ups and comedians, so it's nothing to do with music. I just switched this year. Pandemic kind of happened this way for me, but still, that's why I still do this. But I find really interesting the topic of bringing people inside the industry, and today's industry is different than the 5 years and 10 years and 15 years ago. And I guess when you guys started and I started into the industry of music, it was totally different than today. And the iPad today has a different role, I think, that did not exist at any point in time before. It offers something that is kind of special. You want to talk about how you see somebody coming into the industry today with, like you said, the wealth of options, which is overwhelming, and the simplicity of the iPad compared to that? Because I know Henny is really into, showing how to use the iPad. I don't know, Kennard, how much you're using the iPad in your production, or are you more into traditional studio approach?
So that's the beauty of our partnership, because Henny introduced me to the iPad. I took a more traditional approach. I was one of those guys. I was in, Logic for years. It was the DAW of my choice. I know Pro Tools, but as far as production and writing, Logic was it. So for me, I kind of, the same approach he's talking about with so many choices out there, I kind of started taking that with my music production and really dumbed it down to, let's get some just real instruments in here and just, write records. Like, just make good records instead of, the 300,000 sounds that I have, and I'm looking for inspiration from the patch instead of inspiration in writing a melody. So what the iPad has done for me is change that approach and injected it as a tool in that process. What's incredible, because of this pandemic time, I'm not in the studio. So, right. To have my tools, and that's what we talked about in our promo video, to have access to those tools at any given time. Because when you looked at our studio, there's an upright piano, there's this electric piano, you have a bass player come in, a guitar player come in, and cello, we're either cello, violin, and we're Logic or the iPad, and that was like the other piece there. But now that we're making instruments like this, guess what? We've got it all in the box that we are able to work. So it is definitely a change for me production wise, but it's been one of the most beneficial and quickest way to get my ideas down, and even to collaborate with other people. The fact that it just stays on, I don't have to boot it up. I can just grab it. I got an idea. I got to put this down right now.
That's a humongous plus than just boot up and install and upgrade and But
I think a lot of people they're fearful of the unknown and things that they're not accustomed to. And for me, 5 years ago when I took this journey on, I think I was so frustrated with having so much, and and not really getting out the content that I wanted, production wise. I was sitting there and I was just like, man, like there's got to be an easier way. Like when I was younger and I only had one piece of gear. And and that came back to, just like you said, the simple single device for a single task. And when people start to realize that and see the benefits of it and see that, like, okay, maybe today I just want to do drum sculpting. I don't have to load up my DAW. I don't have to load up these plugins. I don't have to do all these things just to start sculpting drums. There's an awesome app that just does sculpting drums. You see what I'm saying? And then you get those and then you start using them. Or if it's a bass, or if I just want to start playing keys, I'm just going to use this as an electric piano for the day, and I'm just going to start coming up with ideas. And when you start thinking of it in that perspective, it starts to take all the mess away, because a lot of times you're sitting there loading up plugins, loading up things. That's not the right one that I want to use. And next thing you know, your idea is gone.
Yeah.
And I know that, as seasoned musicians, like probably all of us on this call, we can get into that moment. But I think when you're younger, you just try everything. And so I'm trying to get back to that. And that's kind of what has led us to where we're at today.
I heard, I think it was the guy who makes Glitchcore, which is another app. It's also named Matthew. Its last name is Matthew, and he was saying that today one of the problem he saw is a lot of people are just having kind of this. They freeze in front of all the options, because there's like, you've got 2,000 plugins, you've got 20 presets each. You're not going to make music. You're just going to browse. Next,
You're just going to test
next,
stuff.
next,
You're just going to
next,
test.
next.
Yeah.
That was good, but then you continue. And that's why I prefer to not using preset if I can. I like to tweak my own sound, but it takes more time. But as you say, what's cool about the iPad is that because it limits you to one thing at a time, not always, because it depends on the plugin, but it helps you focus.
Yes.
And then you say, well, like you say, drum, bass. And I know that a lot of people, and you probably get these questions also, what do I need to start? It's like, well, what do you want to do? Everybody wants a recipe. There's none.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them. And which one is yours? I don't know, So
no, that's very true. And I know me and Kennard can attest to this when, our students were asking us, like, okay, what's the app that we should get first? And we're just like, probably try a GarageBand. It's free. It's right there. The sounds are good. The layout might be for your liking. The layout might not be for your liking, or it might just be the pivot that helps you get started. But, I think for a lot of people, they're just, to get started on iOS, it's taking a whole nother journey. And if you are already seasoned, if you're already successful, you might feel like it's going to take away from your success or take away from, your momentum. But I think for somebody like us, who've been in the game for a while, KG, talk about the fact that, when you talked about being able to focus, that was one of the biggest concerns. We both have two, younger kids, a wife, and there's a whole lot that goes into just trying to balance your life. And if you're trying to still stay locked in a big room all day, you're not gonna get anything done. Go ahead, talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, even for me, the commute time. I always hate driving. I hate leaving. As I get older, I'm just kind of like, all right, we headed to the studio at 8, and I got to get everything done, and then get in the car and drive there. Before I can even start an idea. I have a laptop here, but it's I gotta, plug up a MIDI keyboard to it and do all this. I have to interface with it somehow. So, just having that freedom to, I'm sitting down watching a television show and I just, just grab the thing and just start going in, it's like, it opens up another level of creativity. That I mean, you just don't have that flexibility of when you have to go into the room each time. And then, for most people, especially our students, we're at the level and we're fortunate enough to have access to studios and, large rigs and consoles and all that. A lot of people don't.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't limit them from being able to create. So this is access. That's what this is about.
Well, then the question is how do I structure this? With everything happening in the music industry and in the tools that we have today, how do you see somebody starting today? I would say the dilemma, the versus, the differences between the home studio and the traditional studio. If somebody says, well, I can't get to the studio, what do I do? How do I start? Can I make an album even if I don't have a studio? How do you see this kind of?
It's a question I get asked all the time, and it's like, is this all that I need? And I think I'm taking the approach, especially on my YouTube channel. It's just like trying to find the minimal things that is going to get you to where you need to go, because when I really started, 5 years ago, my son was 5, almost 6. And now he's 11 and he's into gaming. He's had his iPad since he was 1. He's so focused on those devices. And, KG has, his daughter's 9 and, we both have similar kid ages. And we look at it, it's like, okay, that's their primary device. That's what they're comfortable with. What they're going to be excited about. And this is going to be the pivot is when you start to see more younger people, in 15 to 18 start to become successful doing it on these devices, because we know that everybody that we are influenced by from equipment wise is because we saw somebody do it and they did it cool. The reason why we do half the stuff that we do is because we saw somebody use it and we're like, I need that.
I gotta buy that. I gotta buy that.
I got it. Yeah,
I need that.
And so we haven't got there
why
yet.
This is here.
Exactly. Right. We're still part of that. We're still part of that. And I don't think, when I got my ASR 10 at 17, I thought, that was, I didn't really even understand what a sampler was. I was just like, oh, that's the coolest thing ever. I got to have that. And that's all I had for probably the majority of college, the majority of starting out as a music producer. I had one thing. I had an ASR 10 and some house speakers.
But it was a good one. That was a good sampler at the time.
It was a great sampler. It was a great sampler.
My
in the
first
late 90s.
was the Mirage. The Insonic Mirage, that was the first one.
Yeah.
And that was funky. Too.
But my thing is, I think everybody wants to see the sex appeal and stuff, and, being in a big studio, even today, come on, we know that, especially in urban and hip hop music, most guys come in, they see the big SSL console, they see the big, speakers and monitors, and what do? They just, can I get the aux cord? That's it. All they want is the aux cord so they can plug up their laptop and bang out and take pictures, and let people know that they're in a big studio doing it. When 90% of the time,
2 faders. Then
yeah,
right, 2 faders. Yeah, it's like you use 2 channels. It was 96 here. You use 2.
No, that's it. I don't need to bus anything. I don't need to route anything. Just give me the aux cord. So,
yeah. Well, you're right. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of surprising. At the same time, I think it's normal. I think that not in a way. I mean, I'm going to say sadly, the big studios will have less project, but I don't think so. I think it depends on the type of project, the type of music you're making. If you're making electronic music, there is no need to go into big studio outside of maybe recording violin and on top of your tracks, or maybe recording really good acoustic drum sounds or good vocals. But then again, if you know how to do it, you could do it at home if you control it well.
Yeah.
Listen, I've done some really incredible mixes on like the old iPhone earphones. It's sitting at my kitchen table, when I have to get a reference off. And if you know what you're doing, it goes back to the basics for me. And, the question talking about how would someone get started, yeah, you need to keep it simple. I got some really good advice. My first synth, professional synth, was a Triton LE. And I remember going to purchase that And I'm in Guitar Center. I'm looking at all this stuff. I'm like, I should get this. I should get that. I should get this. And the guy was just like, no. He was like, do you have anything? I was like, no. He's like, get this, master it. And then when you're ready for that next, you've taken this to the limit where you can't get any more out of it, but you know you need something else. That's when you get that next piece. I think for me, well, I think I got a digital recorder, 12-track digital recorder, something like that at the time. I need to learn how to record. But then I got into the MPC and other stuff and started adding on. Before I had a Supernova and the SE1, and I mean, they used to call our rig the rig of doom when we walk into the studio. So much stuff, but I had mastered all that stuff, and I was able to make it work. So that's the beauty of, I think, this transition in technology platforms, because it's going to make us be a little more simple. Because when I first started in Logic, I dreamed of the days we would have samples that sounded really good. We were fighting just for hard drive space, but now they're really nice samples. They're huge sample libraries.
Searchable.
Yeah, but we're kind of dumbing it back down to the basics. But they sound, with these platforms, iOS, this stuff sounds really, really good. Really good.
It's surprising. It's surprising the quality. I mean, we'll talk about this later, about the future of Mac and iPad, because I think that the future is going to be very interesting with the announce that they're going to do next week. So there's going to be something happening. But I like your concept of dumbing it down, because at one point it's I remember years ago when Apple was saying that the future should be as easy as picking up the telephone and just calling somebody. Like, anybody can pick a phone and remember the numbers and just call somebody. And you shouldn't get a manual for this. You just can remember the number, And I don't know how much we're going closer to that, and I think it will never be going to be that easy. But I think that with the quality of the stuff we get on the iPad and the computers also and the hardware, we're closer to a concept where you just turn it on and you can make music. We're closer to that than ever before. That's kind of my feeling, because before we needed a full studio, and now, of course, if you have one, you can have musician playing and you're going to have performances, and that's going to be a plus. But if you don't have access to that, you still can create and have something to show people,
Yeah, and it starts, it doesn't matter if you're a musician or you're starting a YouTube channel. Like, you start with what you have, and most people, that's what we're banking on. Most people have some type of iPad or some tablet or some type of iPhone or some type of smartphone, and what are some things if they're truly interested. And these are the I really want to focus. I've always wanted to focus on that middle school kid who's just getting interested, like I was at 13, 14, trying to figure out, do I really want to do music? Is it what is it going to take? And what are the instruments? Because you don't know, right? You just like, I just want it to sound like that. And you have no or I just want it to look like that, And so, I tell people all the time, even if they're starting a YouTube channel, why not just use the phone? Just use the camera that you have on your phone. Just use, the apps that you can download from the App Store. Go ahead.
Kennard just said that, master what you have.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's the most, exactly. How many people actually know how to use what they already have? Come on. It's just, even the software, the DAW, you talked about Logic, Cubase, whatever it is, most people don't use 50% of it.
They sure don't.
Because, I remember I was with a client at one point, and he tells me, I was using, my software every day. And he asked me a question about that software, about the part that I never use. Of course. Of course, it's going to be the part that, and like, okay, go grab a coffee. I'll figure it out. I don't know how it works. But I was using the software, and I was kind of shocked, because I said, well, I use it every day, but I don't use it the same way he does. And he's using another part because he has a different part of his brain working when he composes than I'm using, which is, perfect, because that's how we are. We are different, and we create differently, and we go reach inspiration in different tools and the tools we have. So we don't expect the same thing out of our tools, of course. If we use the same DAW, I'm not going to use the same way that you're using it,
Yeah.
because we're not inspired the same way. And
I think that's. Go ahead, KG.
Well, no, I was going to say I think that's a big part of why we as musicians have to inject ourselves in this process of innovation. You think back to Les Paul and all the incredible things he did with the electric guitar, and just innovations around using that instrument in new and different ways. But he had an ear for it. But he worked a different way. He heard things a different way, and experimented. And we have to get past this. I'm only using the tools the only way I know how to use them.
Right.
And I'm limited by them. But instead, just say, how can I push this what I have and get what I need out of it?
yeah.
Yeah. No.
Do you feel that the musician have a difficulty in doing the transition to technology, or is it because I mean, some part of it of what you said, I kind of understanding in a way that some musicians have a hard time moving on with technology.
I think that you all have two. I would just say like two types of musicians, I guess. You have those who are really interested in the tech, and so they had to learn the music. And then you have those who are really interested in the music and had to learn the tech. All right. So I was the guy who loved the tech and had to figure out how to do the music part. I was just like, I love technology. I want everything that, I just like that. And there's guys that are just wizards at their instruments, and now they're having to learn how to do the technology part. And I think, it's always going to be a process. The biggest thing is just understanding that it's all in the journey. I mean, the best thing about it all is the journey of trying to figure it out. We over the last week, we're showing people, KG did a little piece in our video about how to use the IDAM, which is I forget what it's
Inter-device.
Inter-device
Audio MIDI.
Apple audio MIDI, yes. Inter-device audio MIDI for Apple, right? Where you can plug your iPads or your iPhones and use it as a sound module inside your DAWs.
Yeah.
And most people had no clue that could work that way.
Yeah.
And they're blown because they still want to keep it simple. They want to keep whatever DAW that they're comfortable with and still use that, right? And so we're like, okay, it's cool. This is another option, right? You don't have to fully invest yourself in, going fully iOS. But that's just another part of learning it and being part of this journey. And that, our biggest goal right now is just to take those who are interested in seeing something new and saying, you know what, let me just see what this is all about and see, maybe I can go down this rabbit hole.
You talked about gear earlier. I mean, I feel old when I talk to you guys. I'm 47, and when you talk about equipment, like I was way before you into equipment. My guess is, I'm 47. I'm guessing you're younger than me.
A little bit, we're
Maybe
both in
just
our early 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah.
So,
But,
I mean, but
it's just, I was so much into gear. I bought a lot of things. I got rid of it. I went to only having a laptop and getting rid of everything. And then I bought that a lot. I mean, all of this I just bought in the last 5 years because I wanted hardware. I wanted the tactile interface. I wanted to be able to play with it. But what you said earlier really resonated with me, because even if I've got everything here, I create on this. And then I send this to the rest of this and I record it back. Because I can create in my phone, in my iPad, in my computer. So my question is going to be, what do you have on your iPad today?
Both of us? I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh man, well Henny's gonna give you.
The list is going to be long. I mean, your favorite,
Yeah.
let's say, the 5 apps you use in the last 2 days. Okay?
Okay.
Oh,
Music-wise,
sure.
music-wise.
Let me
Go
start
ahead, go
because you
ahead.
probably gonna be a lot longer. Of
Just the
course,
five. Just the five. Just the five. It's
okay.
like
Five,
verses.
five, five.
yeah, yeah,
Everybody
yeah,
got a
yeah.
top 5.
Of course, House Mark One.
Okay.
I've got the Model D,
Yeah.
Model D. Yep.
Koala,
Koala app. Yep.
Koala sampler, AUM,
AUM. Yep.
and trying to think the last. You know what? Let me just look. Let me just look. I probably got a session up right now. Hold on. You know, this is the beauty of this. I don't have to go and go anywhere else.
You don't have to boot up the computer.
Nah, the last thing. I mean, and of course, GarageBand, but we're not going to put that one in the list because I mean it's there. Already.
Yeah, it's everybody
But,
has
Alright.
it.
Yeah,
Alright.
yeah. The other one I used was actually AudioKit's 808. So like, yeah. I mean that's enough for me to get.
Yeah, you can do a
Worked
lot
out.
with that.
And that's. I think that the beauty of iOS is knowing that there's so many ways that you can create, and that's what I've been trying to tell people when they're asking me what's the best workflow, and I'm like, there's different workflows, right? If I'm using something like Beatmaker 3, I know I could probably do everything inside of it, use the plugins inside of it, all of that. But you know, I think my last session was very similar to Kennard's, where I'm using AUM, but I'm using like Blocks Wave. I love Blocks Wave to kind of get these ideas quick, or at least get some type of, you know, just a spark quick, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I use Blocks Wave. I get the spark and then I mute the spark because I already figured out where I wanted to go. But, you know, AUM, Blocks Wave, Koala, House Roads, and something like Ravenscroft Piano, you know? It's really a joy to use like Ravenscroft Piano and our House Mark One together. It kind of I really love blending the electric piano with the with the traditional grand or upright, and then putting some hip hop drums around it and finding some other types of synths and stuff like that. So, but you know, for being in this 5 years, it's like there's so many apps that I forget about. I'm like, oh damn, I haven't used that in a long time. What's going on with that? You know, like I when Sampler got updated maybe a couple months ago, the Sampler app, I was like, I haven't used this in years, and I started having fun with that again. You know, really freaking samples, doing things, and then there's always new stuff coming out. So the fun thing about it is just knowing that, you know, you can gift somebody $25 gift card and they can really have a ball.
Oh, yes.
You know,
Yeah, right.
and shit, what could you do with $25 20 years ago for music production? You know, could get some audio cables, maybe some. What are the gray and orange ones from Guitar Center?
Yeah, some shitty audio cables.
That was about it. I mean, it's seriously. So, yeah, I mean, it's to see how far we've come and see where we're going. It's incredible.
Yeah, I think it's that. Okay, so that's your 5 and your 5. Thank
Yeah,
you guys. My next question about I mean, because you guys were into gear at one point, or still are, because it's part
Still
of
am,
you
yeah.
know. My question would be, what's your favorite piece if you have to keep one hardware piece? Now, I think you don't have anything yet. I mean, outside of your iPad, do you have still anything?
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is, you know, a lot of stuff for me, I have a lot of microphones. I have a lot of little digital keyboard. You know, I have a lot of, I went digital so long ago.
If you decide on one piece that you would need to have, you know, musical hardware that you would need to keep today, or let's start with that. I have another one after.
Okay,
KG?
for me, my favorite piece once I got my hands on it was my SE1. Man, I hate that I sold that. Like that's one I hate that I let that go because I basically I let everything go.
You mean from the Studio Electronics, the rack mount?
Yes.
I had one. I sold it 2 years ago.
Man, I really wish I had that back.
For those who don't know what it is, it's a mini Moog and a rack mount.
Yes.
And it sounds amazing. and it's
Man.
stable.
It
Still
warm.
super. And I think there's two for me, but I think it would either be the ASR rack fully kitted out. I used to love that thing, but also recently, I hate that I got rid of my barefoot MM27s.
Okay.
I just didn't. I'm a monitor guy. I love speakers. I love monitors, and you know, those just had such an amazing sound, and I loved how you could tweak it specifically for, you know, if you wanted the near fields, if you wanted the whole thing with the sub, or if you wanted it to sound like a cube. Oh, they were the most expensive thing I probably bought, but as one piece of gear at one time. But those things were incredible, and it was just, I just didn't need it. Oh, I didn't need them anymore. And you know, when IK Multimedia started coming out with iLouds, and I was just like, it's so simple, it's so easy, it's so small, it can go with me. And so I started going that route. But yeah,
But
I digress.
then the question is, do you master your stuff, or you have somebody master them?
Oh, we always have somebody. The biggest thing about leveling up in your career is not the gear, it's the people.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, I always wanted to learn everything about what I wanted to do production wise, but I knew I wasn't a guitarist. I wasn't a bassist. I wasn't, you know, a violinist or a cellist. I didn't really know horns, but I knew I loved all of that in music. And me and KG could tell you, you know, in some of our recent sessions, a lot of it has been the combination of using iOS with real musicians, you know, whether we're bringing in bassists, guitarists, cellists, violinists, drummers, you know, and really talented musicians, bringing them in. And that to us, you know, regardless if you're using musicians, engineers, mastering engineers, is finding that team or those people that you can rely on to get that quality that you knew you couldn't do yourself.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, a lot throughout my career has been because you didn't have access to it, you had to figure it out. I remember in my kind of level up moment was that I would go into these major studios and play my records against, you know, somebody like a Rodney Jerkins track or a Pharrell or Neptune's track, and I was just like, damn, mine doesn't sound like that. But it was like, no, you gotta go figure it out, man. You gotta go figure out how to get it there. So yeah, I mean, at this point in our careers, somebody else masters it, but I tell you what, by the time we leave, our idea sounds good enough to just run with it.
Yeah.
So,
and we tell the students all the time, like, don't worry so much about that. Like, make your ideas great, and all the technical things will come over time. Especially the education of the ear. You know, just you'll get better and better over time. You'll just know. It's kind of like cooking. So.
Yeah, stop putting all that shit on your fader, man.
What, I mean,
compressor EQ. That's all.
Let me ask you. So, in maybe the last 5 to 10 years of your career, has subtraction been more part of your production than addition?
in my case,
Yeah.
I've been through. I think in the last 7 or 8 years, I went back to having kind of a focus and bring it back down to maybe having 3 to 4 tracks to play with, you know, and then say that's going to be the core of the song, and then maybe I will expand to everything else. So right now I'm actually composing on the iPad. I'm using mostly Zen Beats. From Roland, because basically I can have it on a computer and on the iPad. So I can switch, and I have it on the iPhone, on the Mac, and on the iPad. So it's easy for me to switch between everything. And then the one day I say, well, I don't like that sound, I send MIDI out, trigger something else, bring it back in, or I replace the drum with the drum or whatever. So the focus, and I always been a mobile guy, you know, and I gotta show you this. This is it. I bought this in probably 85.
Holy shit.
And that was kind of the Game Boy of music in 95. And this, I mean, they worked on batteries and all that. And this was like Yamaha advanced synthesis and all that stuff. And I would create songs in the subway, you know, and going back to home. And so for me, mobile making, you know, just creating while I was between two states, between work and home, was kind of normal. So when the iPhone came out, I was like, yeah, this is this, but kind of lighter.
Right.
and
really need to replace battery.
So the iPad was kind of a normal thing for me. You know, when the iPad 2 came out, I bought it, and I bought iElectron right away. You know, I was like, okay, let's get into this, you know. And the first generation of DAWs on the iPad was kind of, you know, they wanted to be, but they were not yet.
They wanted to be Mac DAWs, but Mac or PC DAWs, and it was like,
but it was not yet, you know. Yeah. But the second generation was better. And then when I got this, that's the 12-inch iPad Pro, the first generation. Still works really well. Yeah. But I see now the limit on some of the big songs that I work with, that I see that the CPU is kind of, I need to freeze stuff, you know. Yeah. Basically, I need to freeze it. But yeah, this, right now Zenbeats is my tool of choice. I always love Roland stuff. I have to be honest. I was probably 16, and I got these magazine of Roland, kind of what you could buy, and I was just having these magazines and drool over them. Like, I would buy this, I would buy that, and I would
put a circle around it. Yeah,
it was kind of a
wish list
for Christmas. That's what I want, you know, which I never got.
Well, you know? Well, let me ask you a question. What was your favorite piece of Roland hardware?
Oh my God, that I owned or I wish I owned.
Either one.
I own probably the Roland samplers, the S3 330s. Yeah. I had the screen, the mouse, the keyboard. I mean, they had a fucking screen and a mouse and a keyboard in the 90s.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah. And they already had the pre-recording. They were always recording in real time. The last 15 seconds, and it's, oh, that was good, and then you stop, you have the last 15 seconds. That was genius.
Yeah, you know? It was incredible. It was incredible.
So because I was teaching that gear, so I bought it also. I started teaching synthesis and sampling in '96.
Wow.
So I went into FM. I teach the Prophet 5, the DX7, the DX81Z, the JV 2080, the 1080, the Jupiter, the JP8000 that I still own, that I bought from the school when they got rid of them. I even have a VP 9000.
Oof, wow.
I remember in 2000 we had a visitor at the school at Musique Technique in Montreal. At that time, I was working there. We had the guy from Japan come in and show us the future of elastic audio. And nobody was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, audio that you can play on the keys and the length will not change. Like, nah, it doesn't work. And everybody today is like, yeah, it's obvious. But in 2000, it was like, oh my God, what is that? You know, the future was there. The fact that you could separate time, I'm not going to say space, but
I think that was pitch, going. You know? That was time and pitch. Yeah, it's incredible, the capabilities or the mind states of people back then and what they were like, what they were doing and what they were trying to do. Where it's at now, and I can see things in the future where it's, you know, everything is so much more searchable now, right? Everybody wants to get into search. Everybody wants to get into you know, being able to just have it at a fingertip. You know, we're having this search war, you know, with Google and Amazon and Siri and all of that. So, you know, we've been talking about this even in our classes. It's like the next 5 years not necessarily might be based off of touch and feel, but of voice and search. You know, hey, whatever. You know, pull up drums from 1972 that have this type of swing. Now, if you had that and put it into my DAW, right, and then put it into this and of a tempo of this, and if it knows it that well, you see what I'm saying? Like, now it's about understanding the education of the history of music and what you need. And so we're always going to need that education, but the more that you can tell something to do it, and it can just be quick and fast, and okay, loop that and bring that in. Okay, now I need to find show me 7 loops from da da da. Like, I see that happening where, because we're only 12 years in on the iPhone, 13 years in on the iPhone, 10 years from now, where are we going?
But what you're talking about, it's really the job, what I understand is about the job of the producer to select the best piece, what actually fits with this song. So you kind of become the producer, even if you're just the creator,
right? And
the the AI will actually just gonna suggest, stuff and say, well, that's gonna be the one I want. I want to ask you stuff. That's gonna probably be the last song, the last question, because we're still 1 hour. We are 1 hour into the video. So it's going to be, where do you see this going? I know there's going to be an announcement next week with Apple, with the new MacBook and all that stuff. And then it's going to be the same hardware, CPU than you have on the iPad. So where do we expect, where do you see things going in the next, not even 5 years, like 2 years? Where do we see Mac, iPad? Is it going to be colliding? Is it going to be like partnership? It's, where do you see this thing going?
KG, give your first thoughts, and I'll come after you.
Yeah. So for me, we've been watching it. We've been watching, and Apple's really good at this. They're really good at building the ecosystem. They'll give you all the tools you need, and then they'll combine it with a piece of hardware at some point, and you're just like, damn. Yeah, I'm stuck using this because I've been using it all this time. That's what happened with, we had iTunes for years, and all your music was housed there, and then they gave you an iPod, and it was like, well, I guess that's what I'm using. So I think, them building this ecosystem, and they've kind of been teasing it. The iPads have gotten stronger, and they're starting to look more like, when the Magic Keyboard came out, I'm just like, well, shit. Especially an iMac. iOS has started to feel a little more like, navigating in a computer. And I think closing this system down again, them going back to their chips and having a closed system, it's going to allow us to move between devices. The fact that I can, cloud-based stuff, I can, as we were talking, even your stuff with the Roland, when I'm on my iPad and I've got the same, situation on my iPhone or on my Mac computer, and it's so easy just to transfer and move between those devices, it creates just this feeling of I've never left it. It might all be cloud-based, but I've never left it. Now, if I can still do that with my apps on my iPad, we're talking about IDAM and I can plug into it, but how about if I could actually move my work across platforms like that? I think it opens up incredible possibilities in workflow, but also, in some sense what Apple wants to do, which I get it. We're going to be tied to living in your ecosystem and continuing to buy your products as they're upgraded, because I can't just go, I can't go out of bounds with this other product when everything else I'm doing is in this ecosystem. Yeah. So that's my thoughts, seeing where it's going. Henny?
Yeah. I have a lot of the same similar thoughts, and I look at a lot of companies that do certain things where they're trying to lock in the ecosystem, like, because, like being on YouTube and looking at cameras, right? You have somebody like Fujifilm, right? People will talk about Fujifilm in the fact that they give so much to their products, right? So many different features, so many of the same features in different products, whether you want it to be smaller, bigger, want it to have the touchscreen, want it to have the flip out, whatever it is, whatever your liking is and the type of level of device that you need to get whatever you need to get done, they have that for you. But pretty much clear throughout the range is going to give you similar quality. And I think that's always, we can look at that like the reviews coming in with the iPhone 12 and the 12 Pro. You know, one of the biggest things now is saying that, you know, there's not as much emphasis on saying, you know, maybe you should get the 12 Pro because there's so much that the 12 gives you, right? And you're going to start to see that across the board where it's going to be specific things that you feel like you're going to need to be able to get with a specific device. So if we have Apple Silicon that can run a MacBook Air, right? It can run the iPad apps. Now, does it have touch? Probably not soon, right? But they're going to probably keep it same, right, the first generation, and then they're going to start to develop, you know, maybe touch within the screen or something, maybe not. Or maybe they say, you know what, you can run this, but now that we've shown you that you can have mouse, you know, it was smart of them to put the mouse and the keyboard on the iPad because it got people that are using iPad apps to be able to, you know, use a mouse and keyboard for certain apps, right? So they're like, okay, cool. Well, if you actually want the touch, you go to the iPad. But now on top of that, we can throw you Logic or throw you Final Cut or throw you some of these other bigger apps.
That would be great.
Right? You know, and then it's going to be a thing of, well, damn, do I have enough space? Do I have enough storage? Do I have enough iCloud storage? And so now you're like, okay, well, shit, I want to make sure that I have it all. But maybe you have a MacBook Pro that isn't a MacBook Air that has the touch and it has the keyboard. You see what I'm saying? So now it's the best of both worlds. You see what I'm saying? So they're going to keep building that in so that you're going to still be able to do the iPad stuff, the, you know, the MacBook stuff, and all of it is working seamlessly because they're running, like, okay, you said, all their same, you know, neural engines and processors and silicons and all of that. So I think it's definitely a push for most people to use, you know, the App Store, the Mac App Store, and Apple's own, you know, key apps. But from what I see now, I think, you know, in the near future, it's more so what type of device suits you best, right? Do you want something like an iPad, iPad Pro? Do you want something like a MacBook, MacBook Air, MacBook Pro? And all of these things will start to kind of blend together. And hopefully we'll start to see even more companies, developers get on, and so that we can go in between, kind of like Roland. So
cool.
Yeah.
So I'm going to finish with one question.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to start making music today, what's your one advice for them?
Trust the process. Know that whatever you want to do, right? If you want to start music today, trust that, you know, your passion's going to lead you a certain part of it, but, you know, educating yourself on the business is going to be just, oh, did I fall out? Uh-oh. Hold on, guys.
Yeah.
We don't have, we have sound.
Oh, my battery. You have my sound.
We have sound.
Hold on. Sound, no video. Go ahead, KG, while I switch mine out.
Okay. Yeah, somebody who wants to start making music today, I would say this, and you've got tools at your disposal that years ago people could not imagine, and they're accessible, they're affordable. Use that, but at the same time, don't be afraid of just the basics, just making good music. Like, don't get so caught up in the technology, letting that drive where you go, instead of just the foundational basics of making good music. If you want to make music today, I always tell my students this. It's like, I hope you're making it because you love music, and not the byproduct or the artifacts of a music career, because they're not always great. They're not always great. So yeah, I mean, just make music. Just find a way to get your ideas out, get them recorded, and have fun with it. That would be my advice.
Cool.
Am I back? Am I back
You're
with
back.
the?
We have you.
Okay. Too many Zoom calls, y'all. Too many Zoom calls. The battery on this Sony just ran out. I I think like what a lot of KG said, it's very true. Understand, that you want to do it for a certain reason, and don't be afraid to let your excitement and your passion go, as far as it can take you. But just learn the business of it, because that's the part that you're not going to want to do. That's the part that you're not going to want to figure out. That's the part that's going to keep you in it or stray you away from it. And, being in this music industry for the last 20 years, regardless if you're, want to be indie your entire time, or if you want to do some major deals, if you want to make hits, if you want to win, awards and be at the top of the charts, it's all the same. It's like, if you learn what it takes, or at least understand it enough to find those around that might be able to help, it can really help propel you forward. But that's all in part of the process, and it's all a part of the journey. Right now, like we said way back 30, 40 minutes ago, start with that one thing that you have and just play the hell out of it, and keep going back to it and see how much you like it, because it's just like a relationship. You're going to have those days where you're like, I don't like you. And you got to make sure you keep coming back to it, because this is a love, and if you really love it, you'll continue to come back to it, and you'll continue to find ways to make it better. So I think that's all I got right now.
Well, thank you guys for your time. It was amazing, the talk we had today. If anybody wants to follow you, where can they follow you at? I mean, you have your YouTube channel?
Yeah.
And
you can follow me on Instagram. All my digital is out there is Kennard Garret, but my Instagram is Steady State. So yeah, you can follow me at Steady State.
And yeah, everything on all my socials is Henny the Business. If search it and Google it, you'll probably find. Even hennythebusiness.com will just give you everything that you need, so that you can go there and get whatever you're trying to find. So yeah.
Thank you again, guys. It was a blast having you today.
Hey, thank you so much.
Enjoyed it. Appreciate it.
All right.